What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the overall market moving forward, what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I begin the double information, before I give you guys any price predictions for how the market's going to likely move going forward, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. The offer ends very soon, in just about 2 days from now. Anyways, for NIO, we saw another red day as the whole market ended up coming down, and this was a little bit of a more downside risk catalyst for NIO. So as a result, we're still kind of consolidating in this range, and I still think there is a risk of a little bit more downside if we continue on this trend. So I want to break down more information about SPY and the market before I break down NIO, but I just want to say that right now the market is also showing weakness, and this is also affecting NIO. So going into tomorrow, I just want to say that tomorrow is going to be Friday, June 21st, 2024. Just note that 15 minutes after the market ends up opening, we have the S&P Global Composite PMI reports, the manufacturing PMI and services PMI data all coming out. This might cause some volatility for the first 15 minutes of market open. And besides that, there's not really much else that's coming out, but that's going to be very important. When it comes to other factors, I just want to note that before the market opens, we have CarMax announcing its earnings. CarMax is going to be very important too. What they say could cause some volatility for the stock, so I'll see what that ends up causing. But besides that, there's not really anything else too significant for the overall earnings calendar. Now, for options, we have some very, very important expirations coming out. One thing worth noting is right now we have a very, very interesting 508 max pain, at least for SPY. We have a 2.28 puts to call ratio for tomorrow. Very crazy stuff. The max pain doesn't matter, so I wouldn't really pay attention to that. But the reason for that is because these options were bought a very, very long time ago. As you guys can see, we have about 3.5 million puts out of the money, and we have 1.1 million calls in the money. Will the market makers try to switch things up and actually cause the market to tip to move more of these puts in the money? Or is the market just going to continue to just chop around? It's really hard to predict since we have a big day tomorrow with OPEX expirations, and this is oftentimes going to lead to crazy volatility. So it's going to be a wild day tomorrow with all the options expirations. I can't wait to see what this leads to, and it's going to be very significant for the way the market ends up moving from here. For the fear and greed index, right now things are quite fearful. Extreme greed is also making up momentum simultaneously for based off the level we're still at. So because we're so much above our 125 daily moving average, this momentum is still in the greedy side. But sentiment is still more in favor of fear as the market's been pushing so high to these new tops. The put and call option positioning is now starting to move upwards. Oopsie daisy, sorry about that, guys. It's going upwards because we're starting to see more puts being bought. The market's kind of shifting a bit, and the VIX is starting to push a little higher. If we break past the 50 daily moving average, that's going to be confirmation of more potential downside for the markets. As far as NIO goes, there's some big news that just came out. NIO's Firefly models will be competitive in Europe, even with the extra tariffs, according to William Lee Ben. This is very important because in the long term, if local sales reach a certain level, say like 100,000 units, local production should also take place. That's great news, at least for NIO. And also, there's been a lot of talk about how there is opposition against potentially the additional tariffs imposed by the European Union on these Chinese EVs. But at the same time, NIO is not necessarily kind of like backing down on their European expansion. They're continuing to double down on it. They're continuing to become very, very bullish on it. And they're even coming up with new models that they believe could still do very well. That's part of the reason why NIO and lots of these EVs have been dipping a bit with the new tariffs coming out. So we'll see how things end up developing. For new news, on June 20th, the time has come. The NIO House opens its doors in Hamburg. This is going to be enriching the bustling metropolis with new community spaces. That's going to be very important, and it's going to help spur in a lot more diversity and such. NIO also announced that we're actually seeing volume at about 28 million. This is well below average, so we'll have to see if this leads to a shift or not. And that's going to be very pivotal for how things end up continuing from here. But I'll be watching to see. We have very, very low volume. That's why NIO is kind of trading flat. Not much is going on with it. Simultaneously, Bank of America Securities is giving NIO a neutral rating. So once again, there's not a whole lot happening with that. So we'll have to see how things kind of develop from here. But with that being said, there's not much else going on. Tomorrow is the options expiration day. I have about lowering overall price price ratio because we're starting to see a lot more weakness, at least in NIO. And Fridays do have a tendency of being green about 53% of the time, but look for volatility around noon. So what do I think NIO is going to do? Honestly, guys, we're looking very flat and very, very boring right now. Not really much is happening with the share price. And we're in a very, very sideways flat phase. We've been like this for the past week. So I think that there's a very good chance that going into tomorrow, NIO might retest its 20 EMA around this 4.4 area, then come back down, and we're just going to continue to trade sideways for the time being. I think we're most likely going to just continue to consolidate. I don't expect way too much. If we were to lose 4.25, I'll be looking for $4 to eventually come, as we have a bearish trend and we still have this gap to fill down here. So I think there is possibly more downside coming, but we might try to pop towards 4.4 and then come back down and just continue to trade sideways from here. For SPY, SPY is dipping right now on the 4-hour time frame. When I close this, you guys can see that we love to test our 545 area, and we are turning bearish on the 4-hour. So I'm going to be looking for a lower high to be established. If we do establish a lower high and continue, that's going to be the most likely possibility for a 545 test. If that fails at us, we'll be looking at 544, this previous resistance becoming support, and eventually lower levels like 540 as our next potential targets. So I think that there is more downside potential for SPY. Look for a little rebound and more potential downsides, the most likely possibilities, and there's a good chance that this may continue to decline. Now, with all the options expiring, we will see if we end up breaking past 548.5, then we could start running again. If we fail to do so, as long as we're below that, we are still in favor of bears. So I still think there's a risk of more downsides, so we'll be watching to see just for confirmation. For Tesla, Tesla's looking kind of weak right now, but it's loving to test the 180 area. We're going to likely test 180 tomorrow. If we bounce off this, we'll be looking for 182 to 185. If we lose 180, we'll be dipping down to 178. Overall, this trend is showing some weakness. For a few more, let me just go back here. For Nvda, Nvda is showing a little weakness right now, but we're at support at this 130 area. If we hold this, look for a little rebound to about 134 and then see if we get a rejection or not off that. If we lose this, we'll be dipping all the way down to fill the gap, and 125 is going to be on the table. Let me just pull up the daily chart just to kind of show you. We have this big gap to fill down here towards 125. So we'll see if we get a little rebound first, then we continue lower, or if we just start dropping from here. Those are the most likely possibilities. So I'm going to be very patient and see how things end up continuing from here. For other tickers like the QQQ, we also happen to have a gap below. There's a gap all the way down here around 468. So could we see a bit of a dip on the QQQ? It's possible. I would say that we're going to be looking at 480 as key support. If we lose that, we'll be looking for the bigger dip to fill the gap. If we hold this, we could try to rebound. The odds favor a little rebound retest of 482.5, then maybe a rejection and move back down as the most likely possibilities. For Aapl, Apple's also looking kind of weak on the daily time frame, kind of contracting, in my personal opinion. The 4-hour showing weakness, and there is going to be a risk of our 50 EMA to be tested. We could retest basically the 212 area, then we could reject and start tipping down to about 208. But I think there's a good chance Apple's going to see some downside. So a little pop and drop is a very probable possibility. For Supermicro, this is looking a little bit more bearish to me as we got this big rejection. We went up to the target of 1,000. Now we're kind of coming back down. I'm going to be watching basically this 920 area. If we reject it, I'll be looking for a dip all the way down to 888. So I find that to be a very, very probable test. For the IWM Russell 2000, we're actually kind of rejecting off for 50 EMA. So there's a risk of this coming back down towards 198. So it could pop and then drop or even drop from here. So that's going to be very probable in my personal opinion. For Amazon, we're looking a little bit weaker. Not weaker. We're showing some strength. Excuse me, guys, because of the fact that this imbalance is trying to fill, and I think 187 could be tested. It's forming a nice cup, so we might be looking for either like a little handle right here if the cup is not done with, or we might come all the way up to finish our cup. But overall, it looks bullish for now. Either we dip a bit then start pushing, or we go a little bit higher to finish the cup. Either way, it's bullish looking. Meta is showing some weakness. If we lose 500, look for 496. And if we break past 502, we'll look for a big bounce. And besides that, the meme stocks like AMC and GameStop are still looking kind of weak, a little flat. AMC might be dipping towards 4.68 and then try to bounce. Then GME is also trying to rebound a bit, trying to go up to about 27 plus. So we'll give it some time, just see how things end up going. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening. Unfortunately, the market has more downside potential. NIO is also looking a little bit weak right now as we have a big downtrend, kind of rejecting off our 20 EMA. But it's not the end of the world. We have to give this a bit more time, and I can't wait to see what the next month ends up holding as we have deliveries and such coming out. But just know that NIO may retest 4.4, then dip, and continue to trade sideways for now. With that being said, I thank you for listening. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thanks again, and peace out.